Good afternoon, everyone. Hello and happy Friday to you. Hope all is well and you had a great week. Welcome to Business Basics Friday. Let me just get my technology set up here and opened up before we get started. If you are here live, go ahead and share where you're joining us from, city, state, however, we're in New York. It is 59 degrees, so we're almost in spring, one day. So feel free to share where you're plugging in from if you're here live. If you're here on Clubhouse, you can definitely throw it in the chat on the back channel. So welcome again, everyone. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Just want to get my screen up to answer questions if there are any. Okay. All right. Okay. So welcome again. Go ahead and get started. I am Safietou D, CEO and founder of SDR Consulting, Inc. This Business Basics Friday is a weekly session catered to providing valuable information to business owners, and we often have a variety of guest speakers to help share information with you as well as myself and educate you in the many areas of your business that you may need to manage. Just as a disclosure, this is just strictly informational and educational in nature. It doesn't create a client relationship. If you need a specific consultation, we recommend you set that up or schedule a free 15-minute intro call. As far as my background, I've been in the industry 20 years, and I'm a CPA and enrolled agent and also have a master's in taxation. SDR Consulting, Inc. is a virtual firm based in New York, but we do work with clients all over. And we mostly work with business owners providing startup services as well as cleanup and all that fun stuff in between. So today's session is just an open Q&A, a CPA Q&A session. We're here in the middle of tax season 2022, coming to an end in the next 10 days. So I took a break from doing taxes to come here and share with you guys. So if you do have a question, go ahead and post it in the comments below. I do have a question or two to go over that was submitted in advance. And if you're here on Clubhouse, you can submit it in the back channel. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started and go from there. So one of the questions that I hear often is, do I need to make quarterly payments? And, quarterly payments, the first step in understanding and answer that question is what type of quarterly payments, because there are more than one. So the main ones I'm going to really talk about would be estimated taxes. The next one is payroll taxes, and then sales tax. Those are some of the more common quarterly payments that a business owner or an individual may need to make. So let's highlight, the less common first. So sales tax, we'll take that one first. If you're in a business that your state specifically requires sales tax to be collected, whether you provide a product or a service, then most times that sales tax needs to be reported and paid over to the state on a quarterly basis. Some states are monthly, some state it could be annually if your number is low enough. So if you're subject to sales tax, that is one of the taxes that may need to be paid in quarterly. Now, sales tax is not an expense for your company. Sales tax is supposed to be collected from your customer and then turned over to the state by filing that sales tax return. So it's important to understand if you're required to collect sales tax, if the services you provide are subject to sales tax, or if the product you sell is. Most cases it's product related, but there are some services where sales tax is required. If you're in New York, and you could get very granular where in the city, for example, certain services are taxable, but they're not in Long Island. So it could be pretty detailed, the sales tax space. So it's important to first know what you're subject to, and then if so, how often you need to be filing, making sure you're collecting it from your customer and holding on to the money, so then you can turn it over to the state quarterly or monthly, depending on the state's schedule. New York State's quarterly schedule is not a traditional calendar quarter. It's weird, like I think November to December, October to December is doing February or something to that effect. I have the schedule behind me, but it's an odd schedule. So I believe March 20th was the filing schedule from December to February, for example. So it's important to know that's one of the quarterly taxes that could apply to your business, but it's not necessarily an expense. It's something you're supposed to charge your customers and then turn over to the state. Payroll taxes. If you have official W-2 employees, then you should be signed up with a payroll service. We work with a few, but definitely should be signed up with a payroll service so that they can make your timely payments of taxes semi-weekly, weekly, monthly, whatever your schedule is, depending on how much payroll you're running. So they make those payments throughout the month, and then quarterly payroll tax returns are filed, and that summarizes all the activity for that quarter. If there's any balances due, which there shouldn't be, that's trued up on the return. And then there are annual payroll returns as well, related to the federal filing. So payroll returns are another type of quarterly payment that could apply. If you're using a payroll service, they should be handling all of that, and you should just be making sure the money's in your account. All right. Now, estimated taxes is probably the more common quarterly payment that often arises, and we kind of touched on this, I believe, last week. But just to recap, quarterly payments is where you need to pay in your tax liability during the year. And it could be because you're a business owner. That's most likely the reason, because the taxes are not taken out in advance for you. So the IRS and the state wants their money throughout the year. And so you make quarterly payments. The schedule right now is April, June, September, and January. So the first quarterly payment for 2022 tax year is April 18th, 2022. So those are not even quarters either. But the idea is to get an estimate of what you're going to owe when you file next year for this year and pay that in throughout the year. And that's a quarterly schedule for the IRS and the state. If you're not a business owner, you may have investments or other distributions, retirement distributions, that could cause you to be required to make estimated payments as well. So it's not just for business owners, but it's more common in business owners to make quarterly estimated payments. Now, the question I got was, how do you know if you need to make quarterly payments? Well, it stems from understanding your numbers and doing projections. If your business is at a loss, and let's say you have nothing else coming in, or you have a W-2 job where your withholding is covered, you may not need to make quarterly payments. But if your business is profitable, or you have investment income, or you're under withheld from your job, then you may need to make quarterly payments. The only way you'll know that is if you're tracking your numbers, if you're in business with a bookkeeping system, if you're working with a professional that can help you calculate, those projections throughout the year. That's really the best way to know if you need to make quarterly payments. So when you hear that question, you need to make quarterly payments, first understand which ones you are referring to or being asked of you, and then working with a professional to understand if they apply to you or your business. All right, so I hope that answered that question. Another question I'll go over, and if there are any questions, go ahead and post them now, because I'm only going to be on for a short while today and then getting back to taxes. So in terms of how do you start a business, I'm going to keep it really generic regarding this, but I think since the pandemic of 2020, many people have understood the importance of diversifying, not having all your eggs in one basket, or they were forced into business because they maybe got let go and had to make ends meet, whatever the reason. I value being in business. I find a great reward in that. I find great reward in being mentored in business as well. So there's a lot of things that go into being in business and diversifying your income. In general, it's first important to understand what you want to offer, what your skill set is, if it's a service, if it's a product. And I recommend getting a consultation in place with two professionals, CPA, enrolled agent, or an accountant with experience in business taxes, and an attorney. Those investments are investments nonetheless, but they are worth it, because to do it right on the front end is more cost effective than cleaning it up on the back end. All right. So I recommend, if you are looking to go into business, you first figure out what it is you want to do a little market research, make sure you can make money in what you're doing, make sure people understand what you're offering. Oftentimes I speak to people and they tell me what they do, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? So if I don't know what it means, then whoever you're marketing to may not either. So it's important to get a clear-cut understanding of what it is you want to do, work with a professional to get a consultation from the legal side and from the tax and accounting side, because both of those are very important. So we offer consultations, 1 hour minimum consultations for people who are looking to go into business, because before you come to us saying you want to set up an LLC or an S Corp, it's really important to understand what that really means and what that's going to entail. And then I do recommend speaking with an attorney to discuss the legal ramifications of those different entity types. So once you have your consultation and you're set on what you want to do, what entity structure is going to be ideal for you, Next thing you want to do is make sure you have the entity established, get an EIN established with the IRS, get a business bank account in place. Even if it's just a DBA or a sole proprietorship where you don't have an entity, you should still get a separate business account so you can separate your funds between business and personal. After having that, you want to explore compliance. What licensing requirements are there? What insurance requirements are there? Have a business plan. These are all the basics that some people may rush through, but they're really important steps. In terms of compliance, just to take a step back in entity selection, there are some professionals that have to have a certain type of LLC, depending on the state you're in, or certain type of corporation if you have a professional degree, professional license. So it's important to do that research ahead of time, because I've recently heard of a company being shut down because they worked with professionals in the healthcare industry, and they were not properly structured for purposes of New York State, and they shut them down. So you don't want to definitely build up a business and be shut down. You want to make sure you do the proper due diligence up front, confirm what it is you're going into, what type of licenses are required, if there's a specific entity type required for your license, that's important. Okay, so after you have that set up, the business banking, the bookkeeping, insurance for liability protection, licenses that you may need locally, you want to make sure you have a system in place. So bookkeeping definitely captures everything. Now, depending on your type of business, you may need a specific CRM or program, or for example, in the medical space, a HIPAA compliant program to manage your patients. So you want to definitely have a system in place. Please don't go into business in a paper and pen model. It's just not sustainable. And we're in the age where everything is digital. So how are you going to collect money from your customers? How are you going to bill them? How do they find you? Is it a website? Can they book on your site? All those logistics should be worked out as well, and they really should be integrated with your bookkeeping and accounting system, so that streamlines that process. And once that's up and running, now you can hit the ground running, systems in place, everything runs smoothly. Of course, there may be hiccups. Of course, there's going to be tweaks you need to make over time, but doing those things in the front end definitely put you in a better place as far as starting your business and not ending up as one of those statistics that go out of business in the first few years. Okay, so that's just a kind of general overview of starting a business. I recommend you start with the consultation first, and you can definitely find that on our website, sdrconsultinginc.com. You can find the consultation form to get that process started. All right, so if there's no questions today, those are the ones I got in advance that I wanted to cover. Last call for any questions here. We will be back not next Friday because we'll be away, but the Friday after that. So definitely tune in 12 o'clock Eastern time for Business Basics Friday. If you are a service provider that provides value to business owners and has some content that you want to share, definitely feel free to connect with us. We will be getting some new guest speakers up and running in the month of May. So looking forward to that next season of guest speakers and information to share with you. All right. So everyone, I'm going to wrap up, head back to taxes now. Glad I was able to hop on and say a quick hello. Feel free to post in the comments if something comes up later that I may be able to assist via message. And other than that, everyone take care. See you next week. And in order to reach SDR Consulting Inc. and set up your free intro call, you can find us online at sdrconsultinginc.com, social media at SDR Consulting, and by phone at 516-255-6603. All right. Other than that, everyone take care and we'll talk soon. Thanks.